you for years, Greg. Thanks for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along. We're into the show open. We'll get underway. It's all about Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and his selection as Kamala Harris running mate. Lots of reaction. We'll dive into it here in moments. Thanks for being here. Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. A lot of reaction to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz being selected as Kamala Harris running mate. And there are just a ton of stories about Walz this morning, and not the smiley face that the legacy media is portraying, because I went to Google News. You know, you want to laugh, go to Google News and search any topic on Google News and take a look at the way the legacy media is reacting. And you will see this in the news stories and the news coverage. I think it was the New York Times. Kamala Harris and Coach Walz ease into their new partnership. Oh, and they're naturals. They're naturals together. Happy Warriors. Harris and Walz propose an antidote to Trump's American carnage. At CNN. Over at the BBC, Tim Walz touts record and attacks Trump in first rally as VP. As first rally, he's going after Trump. And now here's the New York Times. Walz throwing punches at Republicans makes his big entrance with Harris. And this just goes, I mean, I could continue to repeat those to you, but it's just pretty incredible. So this is Axios. Let's go to left-leaning Axios. Take a look at what Walz is saying. He said, I couldn't be prouder to be on this ticket and to help Vice President Harris become the next president of the United States of America, he said. Then he went after Donald Trump, saying that Trump sees the world a little differently than us, doesn't know the first thing about service. He's too busy serving himself. Walz said, which is kind of an interesting comment concerning some of the stories that are out there today revolving around Governor Walz. Yikes. His military service has really come into question. And Walz said that, speaking about J.D. Vance now, Donald Trump's running mate, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, the vice president said, Coach Walz and I may hail from different corners of our great country, but our values are the same. Oh, that ought to scare the hell out of everybody. I mean, honestly, he's pretty left-wing. The media is saying that Walz is a centrist. Oh, look at this. What a centrist. We got to, he's no centrist. He is no centrist. And those who will dig into it and take a look at it will realize he's no centrist. I mean, let's be honest. You can draw what conclusions you want, whether you support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but the idea that Walz is a centrist, that's laughable. Anybody who has actually followed events is going to know better. So he's no centrist, but that's the media. That's the latest lie they're trying to spoon feed to you, is that he's a centrist. And Kamala Harris said, we both believe in lifting people up, not knocking them down. Well, if you know anything about Kamala Harris' record and the way she behaves behind closed doors, she's not about lifting people up. This is the story that was out there this past week about a Democrat donor who had sent his, was it his son or the son of a friend, and had sent to Kamala Harris' office, and the way that he was treated, just absolutely jaw-dropping. Be honest with you. You would never treat anybody that way. I would never treat anybody that way. Just absolutely incredible. So if Harris and Walz are cut from the same mold, yeah, that's troubling. That's deeply troubling. So Walz making his debut yesterday then as the president's running mate. This is at a rally in Philadelphia. And again, these are political rallies, and I expect, that you are throwing red meat to your supporters. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know that Tim Walz certainly is speaking to the country as much as he's speaking to supporters. And so he introduced himself. He talked about his childhood working on the family farm in Nebraska, his military service, his work as a teacher, his time in Congress. And then he talked about Trump. Make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. Now that's laughable. Coming from the governor of Minnesota and what we've seen happening in Minneapolis. You've got crime being up under Donald Trump. Oh, he said, and that's not even counting the crimes he committed, Walz said. You know it, you feel it, these guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell, he said. And of course, the crowd goes nuts. Because they're being spoon-fed what they, this, excuse me. So you've got Kamala Harris and Tim Walz now, and I wanted to share some reaction. We'll start with Donald Trump's reaction. The Trump campaign reacted in a statement, and they said it's no surprise that San Francisco liberal Kamala Harris wants West Coast wannabe Tim Walz as her running mate. Walz has spent his governorship trying to reshape Minnesota in the image of the Golden State. While Walz pretends to support Americans in the heartland, when the cameras are off, he believes that rural America is mostly cows and rocks. Yeah, and that's from video of Walz saying that. Now, Walz said that. That's not the Trump campaign putting words in his mouth. That's Governor Walz, and that's his view of middle America. Not very uplifting. And they went on. They said, from proposing his own carbon-free agenda to suggesting stricter emission standards for gas-powered cars, embracing policies to allow convicted felons to vote, Walz is obsessed with spreading California's dangerously liberal agenda far and wide. If Walz won't tell voters the truth, we will. Just like Kamala Harris, Tim Walz is a dangerously liberal extremist, and the Harris-Walz California dream is every American's nightmare. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem said of Governor Walz, Walz is no leader. He's a radical. I served with him in Congress. He pretended to be moderate, then showed his true extremist colors as soon as he became governor. South Dakota has been kicking Minnesota's butt economically for years. Last year, nearly 7,000 Minnesotans moved to South Dakota because Walz took his people's freedom away. Harris-Walz will be the most radical left-wing ticket in American history. That's South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem on X. Senator Thune said, excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze here. Look at the lights. Look at the lights. Bright light is supposed to stop you from sneezing. Senator John Thune said the Harris-Walz ticket is the most radical and liberal presidential ticket in history. We can't turn the country into California. Vote Trump Vance. That's Senator John Thune. Okay, so let's get into Tim Walz in a little more. I think these are stories that you... this is a piece actually coming from Newsweek, of all places. It's written by Dan Holloway, who's a veteran of the 82nd Airborne, and he's a podcaster. Does several podcasts. And Dan Holloway says, in the coming days and weeks, you'll hear a lot about Tim Walz. You'll hear about his leadership. You'll hear about his time in office. You'll hear about his military service. But here's the truth you won't hear from the mainstream media. Tim Walz abandoned his men before a combat deployment, and he abandoned his city when it was literally on fire. He says that's the kind of leader Tim Walz truly is. And he says you're already, no doubt, hearing about how Walz spent 24 years in the Army National Guard and retired as a command sergeant major. He's fond of referring to himself as the highest ranking enlisted soldier to serve in Congress. Here's the truth. He spent 24 years as an enlisted soldier in the Minnesota National Guard. As far as I can tell, he deployed once to Italy, once to Norway. But when it was his turn to deploy in the actual global war on terror, Walz instead chose his own aspirations over leadership. In a letter posted to Facebook 2018, veterans from his unit said Walz retired from the National Guard after learning his battalion would be deployed to Iraq, though he assured his troops he was going to join them. Walz would have been the battalion command sergeant major, the highest ranking non-commissioned officer, arguably the most important leader in his unit. And in the moment when they needed him most, when they were about to deploy to Iraq, Walz chose to abandon his men to run for Congress. He goes on to say, this isn't a leader. This is a man who uses others to further his own ambitions, then discards them when they become inconvenient. He abandoned his men, left the military before completing the school necessary to become a command sergeant major, though this hasn't stopped him from using the title on the Minnesota government site in his biography. This goes on. The New York Post has a story this morning. Veterans have accused Minnesota Governor Tim Walz of embellishing his military career and abandoning his National Guard battalion, highlighting that he never served in combat, retired from service ahead of his unit's deployment to Iraq. He had political ambitions. So I want to give you some of the other reaction. President Joe Biden said, Kamala Harris has made a great decision in choosing Governor Tim Walz to be a running mate. Been a strong, principled, and effective leader. Really? Tell that to the people of Minneapolis where the fires were burning, the George Floyd riots. Donald Trump says Walz would be the worst VP in history, even worse than dangerously liberal and crooked Kamala Harris. He's that bad. He'll unleash hell on earth, open our borders to the worst criminals imaginable. I want to get you some of the Democrat reaction. Hillary Clinton said, I'm thrilled to see Tim Walz join the Democratic ticket. From providing free meals for school kids to implementing paid family leave in Minnesota, he's about doing good in all the ways you can. He'll be an incredible partner to our first woman president. Let's go win this. Republican Lindsey Graham said if you had any doubt that Kamala Harris is deeply liberal, look no further than the fact that her VP pick was endorsed by Bernie Sanders. Great day for the left, bad day for middle America. Those are some of the reactions. Also, we've got Governor Walz and his past DUI arrest. You probably have seen the photos. They have been trending on X and social media. So once arrested for drunk driving, he was pulled over for driving more than 40 miles per hour above the speed limit. He was 31 years old at the time, working as a teacher in Nebraska when he was caught on police radar. A lot of people who speed, not necessarily like that, drunk and speeding. There are also other stories that are out there. Tim Walz giving illegal immigrants in Minnesota free services. So during his time as governor, Walz signed laws to provide no-cost health care, free college tuition, and driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. This is according to the New York Post. Walz argued that it was better to offer a driver's license to illegal immigrants than to have them drive without one. So let's just go ahead and give them driver's licenses. He said ensuring drivers in our state are licensed and carry insurance makes the roads safer for all Minnesotans. So he signed that bill. Walz was also enthusiastic about not allowing National Guard troops to be deployed to the southern border to enforce security because he was pushing back against Donald Trump's border policies. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, says Walz is no moderate. And he's saying voters will not be fooled. This is an interview that Vance did with Newsmax. And Vance said people are going to look at his record as they're going to look at Kamala Harris' record. And in fact, he may be even more of a liberal than she is, if that's even humanly possible. I love the comments of Minnesota Representative Tom Emmer, who was on Newsmax. And he said that Kamala Harris' pick of Governor Tim Walz to be a running mate is a gift to Republicans. It's a gift to Republicans, he said. And I kind of thought so as well. As I was stewing on this, just mulling it yesterday. Pretty crazy. Also, you have, and again, now the media is describing Walz as a centrist. And we're going to talk about that this morning. You know, we had a few callers from Minnesota. The news was just breaking in the final hour of the program yesterday. And we started out, and I said, I would love to hear from folks in Minnesota, your reaction. I want to open it up to you this morning. The media is describing Walz as a centrist. Now, I've just shared what the media is not telling you. How would you describe Walz? We'll talk about that this morning. Also, you have got the Walz administration, Minnesota, had severe COVID-19 restrictions, including a hotline on which residents then could report on each other for violating. He had issued an executive order, stay at home, right? And so if you had people who weren't doing that, remember Minnesota established a snitch line that you could report those people who were not staying at home. That's the kind of guy that Tim Walz is. And this is why I think, and I agree with South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem on this, this is why an incredible number of Minnesotans have said, let me out. Let me out. I got to get out of here. They're coming into South Dakota and they're moving to other states in droves where their freedom is not under constant and continual assault. That's the kind of governor that Tim Walz was. So imagine, then you want to elevate him to the national level. Imagine what kind of vice president he would become. And it's a little bit frightening. And also there's a piece about Tim Walz then, and there's a piece by William Bornhoff talking about Tim Walz now is getting national attention and criticism to the bills he signed into law as Minnesota's governor. Some of the most progressive laws in Minnesota's history were passed in the last 2 years during the period when Democrats held a trifecta in the state government. Among those laws is one that requires public schools in Minnesota to stock menstrual products in all girls and boys bathrooms at no charge to students. That bill went into effect January 1st of this year. And he's taking a lot of heat for it. So the products include pads and tampons. And again, girls, makes sense. Okay. You can at least make an argument. Okay. Women, but in boys' bathrooms, that's the kind of governor that Tim Walz has been in Minnesota. So we'll get your reaction coming up. That's a huge story this morning. And we'll open up the phone lines coming up this morning after 7. Thanks so much for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. This hour brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. All right, coming up about an hour from now, we've got your tickets to see Styx and Foreigner. There they are right there for those watching on YouTube. So about an hour from now, we'll give you a chance to win these tickets. Styx, Foreigner, and John Waite coming to the Denny on Wednesday, August 28th. So keep listening to for your chance to win from the Greg Belfrage Show and Kello. Yeah, it's all about Governor Walz this morning. Seriously, that's just a huge story. It's overshadowing the Olympics and everything else. Gabby Thomas won the gold in the women's 200-meter final. Team USA topped Brazil to advance to men's basketball semifinals. Kevin Durant became Team USA's all-time leading Olympic scorer. So there are a lot of things going on, great things going on at the Olympic Games as well. Stock markets closed higher yesterday. That's what's going on with stock markets has been a concern this week. All right, let's see what's going on in the Kello newsroom here. Or maybe not. Joe, where are you? Yeah. So we'll open up the phone lines coming up this morning after 7. And again, the media calling Walz a centrist. That's a laugh. Because as governor in Minnesota, what we have seen him is we've seen him embrace the far left. So he's a perfect choice for Kamala Harris. And do the work finding the best people for you. See for yourself. Experience the ease, efficiency, and power of ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free. Few widely scattered hits of rain around this morning. Our high temperature at 78. South wind at 10 to 20. More showers at 24. Expected on the radar this evening. Our overnight temperature drops back to 58. Tomorrow's high right around 74 with a north wind. In Sioux Falls at 6:30, partly cloudy and 61. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello. Thanks so much for being here. Hey, let's give you a chance to win a pair of evening passes to Wildwater West Water Park. We'll open up the phone lines. Be caller number 7 right now at 605-336-1320. Call us right now, 605-336-1320. Caller number 7 wins 2 evening passes to Wildwater West. Call now. We've got a lot of tickets and stuff that we'll be giving away coming up. We got these Sticks and 400 tickets, and we got passes to Wild Water West, and then I learned about another promotion we'll have coming up. So I always jump on chances to, if we get an opportunity to get tickets that we can share with you, we're all about that. At least I am.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been tapped to be Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate in the 2024 presidential election. Walz was re-elected governor in 2022 and also served 6 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives. He's seen as a running mate that will help Harris win in key swing states.
A lot of the stories that are trending are international stories.
Fortune magazine's list of top 50 best places to live for families. It comes in at number 42 on this year's list, dropping a few spots from last year. Sioux Falls is called a nature's lover's delight, citing Falls Park as one of the top 25 urban parks in the nation. The city also got high marks for its cultural scene and for having one of the best hospitals in Sanford USD Medical Center. And the top city this year, Silver Spring, Maryland. Governor Kristi Noem has proclaimed today as Purple Heart Recognition Day. The Purple Heart is America's oldest military medal. It's earned by soldiers who've been wounded in the line of duty. Soldiers like Michael Fitzmaurice of Hartford, who has also earned the Congressional Medal of Honor for his act of bravery. He was awarded the Purple Heart when he covered an enemy explosive device with his flak vest and body in Vietnam back in 1971.
I had one of my best friends in there with me, and they blew the other bunker and buried the other guys, so we didn't know if they were even alive. We were just in a little fighting hole, which there was no place to go, and no, I never figured I'd survive.
Governor Noem is calling on all South Dakotans to acknowledge and remember the sacrifices made by those who've earned the Purple Heart. And the American Red Cross has declared...
There are just not a lot of trending stories this morning, and I think it's in part because so many... So much of the news is the focus has been on Tim Walz and his selection yesterday. So
never stops. Kello, News Talk 1320, 107.9. Partly sunny today, high temperature 78 with a few scattered hits of rain around this morning. A better chance of scattered thunderstorm development coming up this evening. And a couple of those storms could be on the strong side. Overnight low temperature at 58. Tomorrow, we're going to be a few degrees cooler with a high of 74. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens. The station intelligent people listen to.
That's BS. That's a lot of garbage.
Don't be that guy.
How did that idiot get on the radio?
Kello, News Talk 1320, 107.9.
There's just something special seeing what the house you grew up in looks like now. And it's just a click or two away using Google Street View. I'm Kim Commando, America's Digital Pro. What was the first animal Google Street View hired to capture a place that they could not access by car? Make your best guess, and I'll give you that answer at the end. Google Street View has captured images of over 10 million miles of roads worldwide. You can flash back as far as Google has been collecting pictures in an area. Just open the Google Maps tab and search for the address. At the bottom, tap the place name and address and scroll and select a photo labeled Street View. While looking at a location, tap anywhere on the image and then tap See More Dates. It's a great way to see if that giant tree you used to climb is still standing or if the new owners painted the house a wild color. Now, that answer is a camel loaded with Google's cameras captured a 62-mile desert area near Abu Dhabi. Just days left to enter to win a $1,000 gift card at winfromkim.com. Ghosting. Defined as a friend not responding to a text, or worse, a lover. Or maybe you just read someone's social media post, but you never hit that follow. Don't be a ghoster. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, go to my profile and follow me. My posts are the best. You're going to sound smarter. You're going to know the moment a data breach happens. So when you're laying in bed tonight scrolling through social media, find me everywhere at Kim Commando. Remember, it's not Kim Kardashian. It's me, the other, well, smaller Kim. Kim Commando. I cried almost every single day this past week. No, not sadness. I cried because I was just laughing so hard. My new daily video podcast, Kim Commando Today, is a total blast. Stream it live at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. That's 1:30 p.m. Eastern. On YouTube.
Disney's announcing price hikes for Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, streaming platforms. U.S. stock markets did better yesterday, closed higher.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday nights at 9. Kello News.
Uber shares closed up 11%. They beat Wall Street estimates. Trying to see if there's other news here that will. Elon Musk is suing advertisers, accusing them of violating antitrust laws last year when pausing promotions on X in the middle of allegations of anti-Semitism. Some of the other stories you may be interested in. But the big story is Tim Walz. There's a story at Times Now News. Tim Walz, major controversies as Minnesota governor, DUI arrest to George Floyd protests. And they run through them. So drunk driving, he was accused of drunk driving in the mid-1990s. Following the killing of George Floyd in 2020, Walz was criticized for his handling of the Minneapolis riots. Yeah, Minneapolis was literally on fire. Big transmission problem or minor repair? It takes a specialist to know, and that's why I recommend the specialist at Jim's National Transmission, downtown at 4th and Weber. When having transmission problems, it's always best to go see a specialist because most auto repair places, they're just going to replace your transmission. That will cost you 50 to 70% more than if you went to a transmission specialist. So do yourself a favor, save yourself time and money too by taking your vehicle to the team at Jim's Transmission. They know all the ins and outs of automatic transmission diagnosis. Jim's Transmission is the transmission-only specialist where transmissions are all they do. Find them downtown at 4th and Weber. Check out their website for coupons, specials, and their phone number. So if you want to make an appointment, you'll find their phone number at jimsautotrans.com. That's jimsautotrans.com. jimsautotrans.com. Jim's National Transmission, downtown at 4th and Weber. .39, Point Lake cloudy and 61. Good morning and welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Hey, I want to congratulate Jeff Hess of Parker. Jeff won those 2 evening passes to Wildwater West Water Park. Hey, Jeff, have a great time at Wildwater West. Thanks a million for listening. Very much appreciated. We'll have another chance for you to win Wildwater West passes coming up tomorrow. Still to come this morning, we've got your tickets to see Styx and Foreigner. And we'll give you a chance to win less than an hour from now. Styx, Foreigner, and John Waite are coming to the Denny on Wednesday, August 28th. And we would absolutely love to send you that promises. I mean, Styx and Foreigner, are you kidding? I mean, those are groups I grew up with. Both of them have got a number of hits from the 70s and 80s that I just absolutely love. So we would love to send you. So keep listening for your chance to win. We will do that coming up within the next hour. If you want to buy tickets to see Styx and Foreigner, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I pinned a link right to the top of my page on Facebook So you can go and get tickets that way and choose the seats that you want. So otherwise, we'll have your chance to win coming up within the next hour.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belk's News Gal.
Trending stories this morning. Got the Trump campaign reacting to Kamala Harris' pick of Tim Walz as her running mate. And the Trump campaign saying Tim Walz is a dangerously liberal extremist. And Donald Trump's campaign press secretary said it's no surprise that San Francisco liberal Kamala Harris wants West Coast wannabe Tim Walz as a running mate. Walz has spent his governorship trying to reshape Minnesota in the image of the Golden State. Walz is obsessed with spreading California's dangerously liberal agenda far and wide. Also, Tim Walz's arrest for DUI has resurfaced. You've also got veterans accusing Walz of embellishing his National Guard service and then quitting his unit before they were deployed in Iraq. So a lot of controversy surrounding Tim Walz. New York Times focusing mostly on the decades-old drunk driving arrest. It's getting new attention because of his being named as Kamala Harris' running mate. New York Post has the story about Tim Walz leaving his National Guard battalion hanging, slithered out the door, are comments that some people are making. That's coming from veterans. These are comments coming from veterans. So they are being very outspoken now about Tim Walz and his military record, and also there's a piece at Times Now where they run down all of these Tim Walz and all of these controversies going on. So do you think Tim Walz going to be able to handle the spotlight? Now you're running for vice president, and it elevates you to a whole new level. I mean, really does. So I think you're going to, and I noticed this even yesterday on X, after as I was preparing the fourth hour that we do on YouTube every morning. So if you can't get enough of the Greg Belfrage show, first of all, God love you. I appreciate it very much. But you can't get enough of the Greg Belfrage show, join me for the fourth hour on YouTube. And that's where I got about 30 minutes, and I go and I take a quick look. I'm scanning the headlines to see what's new. Or I'm also, sometimes I get emails after the conclusion of the program, so I will share those, that kind of thing. Just continue our conversation. But so X yesterday morning, responding then to Governor Walz, they with lots of photos of, everybody remember this? Downtown Minneapolis on fire. And the other things that we, watched happen during the time that Tim Walz was governor of Minnesota. Really? You think that, is that leadership you want in Washington at the national level? A lot of people are responding to that. Also trending this morning, there are a number of stories from the Middle East. And again, now keep in mind, trending stories are often dated and a little bit behind because the Israelis are saying, Israel, for instance, this was one story, Israel considers a preemptive strike on Iran as tensions escalate. Well, the story, to update that story, the latest this morning is and this is directly from the Israeli Times, or the Times of Israel, I think. The Times of Israel were saying that the Americans getting involved and pushing seems to have been Iran now seems to have given Iran pause before just attacking Israel, at least for the moment. That's what the latest is. Also, the judge in Donald Trump's hush money case postponed a ruling on presidential immunity. He will decide whether to recuse himself next week. We're talking about Judge Juan Merchan and that case against Donald Trump, the hush money trial. So the judge is pushing back a date for a key ruling now on presidential immunity until 2 days before Trump's scheduled sentencing. So the immunity decision had been due September 6th, with sentencing set for September 18th. But then Trump's lawyers asked Judge Merchan last week to rule first on their renewed bid then to get the judge to step aside from the case. So he is saying he will rule on that first. And it's been delayed then until 2 days before sentencing. Also, the Supreme Court has rejected Missouri's attempt to try to block Trump's gag order and sentencing. So the Supreme Court on Monday shut down a long shot push from Missouri to remove a gag order that was imposed by Judge Merchan then, and Missouri was trying to have that lifted and unsuccessfully. Also, Cori Bush was a member of the squad, the progressive, ultra-liberal squad. She lost the Missouri Democratic primary to Wesley Bell. And she's out there raging in reaction to that, which is what I would expect. Other stories that are trending this morning. The new leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, directed the October 7 attack against Israel. And he did it from Gaza, according to news stories. So he's believed to be hiding under Gaza. He's named the new chief of Hamas after the killing of the head of Hamas then in Iraq. He's been named and he was the leader of the October 7th attack. Sinwar was. And so now apparently he is named the new chief of Hamas. Yesterday was election day in a number of states. Representative Slotkin won the Michigan Democratic Senate primary. She'll face off against Mike Rogers in a November election. Also, the Kansas police chief who led a raid on a small town newspaper going to be facing criminal charges. Prosecutors say they plan to charge the police chief over his conduct following a raid on the newspaper. Two special prosecutors said this week they plan to charge him, and the report of prosecutors was based on findings from the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and Colorado Bureau of Investigation. Details the small town drama that precipitated then the investigation, as well as his attempt then to, what happened before and after the raids. So he will be facing criminal charges for his conduct. Also, Nancy Pelosi is saying, and this story has been trending literally for days. I mean, and you keep seeing new reports about whether Nancy Pelosi has spoken to President Biden since he has withdrawn from the race. And she has not, she said. She has not yet spoken with President Joe Biden since he dropped out of the race. And I'm not certain why that story is still trending. That's old news, I think, really. But still trending. Do you remember the QAnon shaman, Jacob Chansley? He will get his spear and helmet back from DOJ. Remember him at the January 6th riots? Chansley with the spear and that horned helmet that he had. You've got to remember, because there were a lot of photos of him. He kind of became the face of the January 6th riots, and he did time for the January 6th riots, and this seems to be one of the most polite guys. He was involved, in conversations with police, and a reasonable kind of guy. I mean, there's a lot of things about the January 6th riot that are, a lot of questions persist over the January 6th riots and how people were, how they got into the buildings, how they were treated, how they were treating other people while they were in the buildings. Also, DOJ has charged a Pakistani man with ties to, he's got ties to Iran, and now they have charged him in an alleged assassination plot, potentially targeting Trump. And so, again, he's got ties to Iran. Iran wants Donald Trump dead, no question about it. I think a lot of us understand that Iran wants Donald Trump dead. So this Pakistani man with ties to Iran, apparently he was out, and he approached a couple of agents who were undercover and trying to get them to undertake this assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And now he's facing charges. There are some stories from the Middle East that are also trending this morning. Israel confirming the death of the commander of Hamas in Gaza. This is Jabbar Aziz. So he was killed in a Sunday strike, then on a Gaza school. So it was an airstrike against a school. And what we've seen is that these Hamas leaders, that's where they hide. They try to hide themselves in places where, like schools, so on. And then when Israel strikes that, Israel's striking schools. No, they were after these terrorist leaders who were hiding out in public places, hospitals. That's the kind of thing that we see coming from Hamas. Also, Hezbollah has launched some drone and rocket attacks on Israel. They're warning the more retaliation then for their top commander's death. More attacks are coming, according to Hezbollah. So they launched drone attacks on Israel, vowing that revenge is still yet to come. It's a story from the New York Post that's trending this morning. Also, if you remember Jenna Ellis, former attorney for Donald Trump, she's agreed to cooperate in the Arizona fake elector case. So she worked closely with Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani. She now saying she'll cooperate with Arizona prosecutors in exchange for charges being dropped against her in the fake electors case. There are a number of stories on that. You can find them at The Blaze, ABC News, and others. And then it's kind of a technical story that Chinese scientists are finding water in lunar crystals. And it's challenging the dry moon theory. So this is a pretty big discovery of these lunar samples that are being analyzed by China. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Great to have you along this morning. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. Currently partly cloudy, 61. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
And we'll tell you everything we know.
Well, thank you so much, my friend, for letting me join you this morning. Please join me for the for the fourth hour coming up on YouTube at 9:30. So 9:30 this morning, that show is a YouTube exclusive. So I'll do it after the show, about 30 minutes after the radio show today. And I hope you'll please join me for that. In fact, more and more are joining me for that. So I would love to have you along as well. Please, if you'll hit the like button, subscribe, very, very much appreciated. Got a growing number of subscriptions, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you so much for being here. Take care until tomorrow, my friend, and may God bless.
We've done every conceivable kind of water disaster cleanup you can imagine. Some of the